up on Tech News today, watch out, FBI, because Anonymous is listening to you. Nobody understands Google's privacy policies, not the EU and not the U.S. Congress. Panasonic and Sharp are hurting, and they're hurting bad. And watch those Xooms. They might not be wiped. All that and more next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, February 3rd, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Collaborate face-to-face remotely with GoToMeeting with HD Faces. For your free 30-day trial, visit GoToMeeting.com, promo code TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Darren Kitchen.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we kick around the tech news of the day along with you, try to make sense of it all. And because it's Friday, we like to do it with beverage.
Cheers.
Yeah.
So
cheers.
Hopefully everybody at home,
Clink.
whether you've
Cheers.
we're doing beer here, but you choose the beverage of your choice: water, soda, whatever. And it actually is fitting that it's Liquid Friday because we have Stephen Johnson of New Brew Thursday on the show, who actually supplied this lovely beer for us.
Yep.
Fancy stuff here.
Up here today for the Russian River Pliny the Younger release, which is like a beer geek mecca every year.
It's a big deal, isn't it?
It is a big deal. Yeah, it kind of shuts down Santa Rosa. They get really excited about it. So that's why I brought all Russian River beers this time. So
well, we really appreciate it. Good to have you here. Let's jump right into something that I know Darren's excited to talk about.
Hack the planet!
Well, they're trying to.
Hack the FBI. Oh, yeah.
Anonymous is paying attention to FBI conference calls. Anonymous released a 16.5-minute or so long conference call recording between the FBI and UK police. Happened in January, discussing Anonymous and other hacking groups, dates of planned arrests, all sorts of details that the FBI tends to want to keep private and secret since they're the FBI and all. Now, the FBI has confirmed this intercept is valid, said in a statement, the information obtained on the call was intended for law enforcement only. It was illegally obtained, and of course, a criminal investigation is underway. Anonymous also published an email. Apparently, this is an email that went out before the conference call that detailed who was going to be on the conference call, email addresses of law enforcement officials from the U.S., U.K., Sweden, Ireland, a few others, inviting them to come to the conference call and discuss these investigations relating to Anonymous, LulzSec, AntiSec, other associated splinter groups, as they call them. British police at Scotland Yard say that the matter is being investigated. No operational risks have been identified, which is a little bit silly. Obviously, there's some risks here. Some usernames. It's a video of an audio recording is up online. People have noted usernames seem audible in the recording. Real names appear to be bleeped. One would assume Anonymous had done that themselves. So, Darren, what do you think? How did they do this? How does this happen?
Well, I mean, easy enough. You get the email.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just came back from ShmooCon, so I've been talking to pen testers all week. And, you know, it's always fun hearing the stories from pen testers because they have to be like, so I was doing a job at a company that, well, let's just say it rhymes with Oogle and, you know, things of that nature. But yeah, you'd be surprised, like, how often there's code on machines that, like, you would just be flabbergasted that they'd get on there, government agencies, things of that nature. So It doesn't surprise me that, you know, a member from Anonymous would be able to intercept an email like this. And to be honest, the amount of government agencies on this call, you know, between the Brits and the FBI and stuff, like, think about it and how disorganized so many organizations are. When you try to get that many people on the same page, like on a phone call, what are you doing? Well, you're getting a conference bridge.
Right.
And you shoot an email that says, here's
You're using an open source product of some sort that's cheap.
or just using just a regular old conference bridge,
Right.
like here's the phone number, here's the 6-digit PIN code, and then now once, you know, if you have that email, I know from the freak scene, you just call in way in advance, bloop, 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 get on there, and then you're like silent and recording.
I mean, that seems to me like something that you could do for your average conference call that's happening in a corporate environment. But these are people who are investigating Anonymous, the people who hack into things with ease. So why aren't these? It seems ridiculous that it wouldn't be somehow encrypted.
Back in the 90s, I was really big into the hacker world and hacker community and whatever, and that was one of the things that was always very legitimately accepted was that the easiest thing to hack into was the government, because the hardest problem that they have in securing their networks is the red tape behind it. So by the time they process all the red tape and get all the systems in place and do all that sort of stuff, they're installing already outdated, already broken systems that people can get access to very easily. I mean, I remember in '96, I got into a system using the LPT port, you know, and that was a very simple hack at the time. And it turned out to be a government system, and it was like, oops, like back out slowly, you know. And it's just they don't use very secure systems because they don't understand what they're trying to defend against, and that's the biggest problem.
Anonymous IRC Twitter handle that is associated with the group tweeted earlier today, the FBI might be curious how we're able to continuously read their internal communications for some time now. Op infiltration was the hashtag. So, you know, if this is to be believed, they are well aware of what's going on.
And I got to say that this is a lot more interesting than another DDoS or vandalization of a website. The Boston Police Department site was recently vandalized due to in response to Occupy Boston police brutality. And while that is just like a measure that just is kind of like one of those like emotional reaction kind of things that like definitely gets the press and everything, I don't feel like it really has the weight of like, you know, we're going to snoop onto you as you snoop onto us.
Right. Taking out a website, they actually, hackers, at least operating under the anonymous name, also took down the website of Greece's Justice Ministry before officials ended up taking it offline. The hackers said that they were protesting Greek signing of a global copyright treaty, poor decisions, and this current economic crisis. So those are the sorts of things that do make a statement, and they do get headlines. But listening in on what the FBI would like to be a secure conversation about them.
It's a dangerous game to play.
Potentially.
But Darren, do you consider yourself a white hat?
Who is asking? Yes, of course, absolutely. Everything I do is on the up and up.
Well, you know, the internet community that's watching you now. Well, because the reason I asked that question is because, you know, these sorts of things like Anonymous doing the retaliation against Boston Police Department, Greece is just a lot of what Anonymous does. From the standpoint of somebody looking in, kind of is like, yeah, take that. Like you shouldn't have been brutalizing these Occupy people. Do you have that viewpoint towards this? Do you see these as justified hacks? That's, I guess, the question I'm getting at.
What I see it as is like a very like human emotional reaction to what you feel is wrong. It's very vigilante, and with the things like the takedowns, the DDoSes, you know, RMRFing a web server, you know, that gets attention, that gets it into the media, and that gets those problems that otherwise wouldn't have been covered, you know, some attention. And I feel like in that sense, you know, that's where Anonymous has really shined.
Okay, right on. Yeah, because I feel like this is you know, there's a lot of the nerds, quote unquote, as that's what they're called now. You know, this is their only way to kind of react to it, and so there's a large part of me that looks at Anonymous and says, "Go do your thing," but you know, leave Facebook alone because I kind of have something to look at during lunch. You know, so, but yeah, that's why I asked, because I'm curious to know, like, because you're in the industry a little bit more than I am at this point, so it's interesting to get that perspective. So.
All right, let's move on to, let's see, what could follow a story about Anonymous? Oh, I know, patent wars. Okay, Apple and Motorola. This is kind of convoluted, so I'm going to do my best to explain two separate cases. First one, the Mannheim Regional Court in Germany found that Apple's iCloud service indeed infringes on a Motorola patent used to synchronize email accounts. This is an older patent. The ruling holds that Apple is liable for damages and potentially blocks sales of Apple devices, including the iPhone, the iPad, in Germany. Anything really that can use software that would run iCloud, and allows Motorola to ask for information about past device sales. Now, Apple, of course, is saying this is nonsense. They actually call it an old pager patent, and they're appealing. Now, if Motorola wants to suspend Apple product sales during this appeal, because appeals process can take a while, it needs to post 100 million euros, which is equivalent to about $132 million US, as collateral which is common in German courts when enforcing a ruling during an appeal, because it is supposed to reflect the losses that Apple might suffer during the ruling by complying. Now, if Apple wins their appeal, then this money goes to Apple in order to... they can basically use it to seek damages from the loss of from potential losses. So there's that. Second case, Motorola wants to force an injunction. It won against Apple in Germany over a cellular communications patent. This forced Apple to take down a few models of older iPhones and iPad models, 3G, iPhone 3GS, iPhone 4, and the 3G UMTS-based iPads in its online store in Germany overnight. So a bunch of stuff went down. Then a bunch of stuff went up again this morning. Same stuff, because a different court this morning temporarily suspended Motorola's injunction. The quote was, Apple appealed this ruling because Motorola repeatedly refuses to license this patent to Apple on reasonable terms, despite having declared it an industry standard patent 7 years ago. That's from Apple. They're talking FRAND here. We talked about this earlier in the week, which means fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory when it relates to patents that are supposed to be licensed between companies to further technology. So this is the FRAND case, and Apple's got a situation going on with Samsung as well about that. So it's unclear how long Apple has during their appeal, although Florian Muller over at Foss Patents says the suspension of this injunction could stand throughout the appeals process, and Apple could keep its products on shelves for the better part of a year. That's in the best case scenario for Apple.
So the question is whether Motorola has 100 million euros in collateral right now sitting around. And probably maybe some assets and things.
Probably not.
But especially they're waiting for the Google money to come in. But the thing is, when it comes to this, is it going to cost Motorola less to license this to Apple? Probably, than 100 million euros. So this is the end of every conversation I have about this. Cross-licensing agreement. It's going to happen. So
the only thing I could think of while I read this article was the idea that these patents need to start having a better shelf life. We look at computers and they have a 36-month shelf life. Mm-hmm. And these patents need to have the same kind of shelf life because Apple's right. This is an old pager policy. This doesn't really, iCloud does not, yes, they did email synchronization, and I get that. And iCloud is doing that as well. Mm-hmm. But Motorola needs to either update that patent so that it's more relevant to current technology, or they need to let it go. And that's my biggest thing when I see this. Is like iCloud is not email synchronization, and if that's what you're using iCloud for, you're using it wrong. So I don't really see this as a patent infringement. I see this as Motorola going, hey, we used to do that a long time ago with our phones. We should totally get in there and get some money out of them for this. And I think that's kind of lame.
Well, that means Motorola spent time and effort to get this stuff done. It might have taken them more than 36 months to actually get it completed. So if you only have a protection for 3 years, you're probably not going to be doing some crazy planning when you're actually doing this. So
right. I'm not necessarily saying that after 3 years it's done. I'm saying after 3 years you need to update it and make it more relevant so that it's current with technology. Because Apple's defense should come in there and be like, look, iCloud does way more than this does. This is okay. Maybe if we removed mail synchronization from iCloud, does that not infringe on their patent at that point?
If you can remove parts of the software, this has been an issue between Samsung and Apple a lot. Samsung will just put out a over-the-air update, and then the Galaxy items will no longer infringe because it doesn't have the same swipe for photos or whatever it is. So I see what your point is here. Like, it seems a little like they've been sitting on this. They're not really doing much with it. And it doesn't seem like it necessarily applies. The court disagrees. They said it does apply. But the thing is, this information is public. So the thing is, if Apple, let's say they were just going, okay, we have our attorneys, we have our R&D, we're looking at other patents, which are public, and you can read them. If you got the idea from there and you actually took the method, you got to pay up for that. This is why you put your money in R&D.
Right. No, and I totally agree with that. I just think that the patent should be relevant to what the actual product that they're suing against is actually doing. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, and I don't think this is, because simple email synchronization shouldn't even be patentable as far as I'm concerned. It's such a generalized situation to begin with, in my opinion, that I don't think that should even be something that they should be able to sue for. But at the same time, they need to look at it and go, okay, iCloud doesn't just do email synchronization. It does a whole lot of other things. And so at that point, is it really infringing on a patent that you have that you're currently using and making money off of? And that's really, I think, where it boils down to is Motorola making money off of their email synchronization at this point?
Well, they will because they're enforcing their patent to get that royalty. That's what they're doing.
Well, they're making money through the courts, yes.
What's funny is the reason why I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound so crazy to me is that when I was going through law school and I saw like the first container that was patented that could go from a train to a truck, I was like, that was a thing? Really, somebody actually came up with this idea and this method of creating a transferable container unit that sat on the back of a truck that could also be put on a railroad car. I'm like, that seems like...
And a guy watching that actually ended up making a show called Transformers.
I was about to say that. Yeah. Nice.
All right, so Apple's on the defense with Motorola, but they're definitely on the offense when it comes to Samsung. Down in Australia, Apple has expanded its patent lawsuit against Samsung.
They had 3 of those before, right? They were like suing Samsung for 3 patent disputes with the Galaxy Tab, right?
Yeah, actually, it's been bumped up to 22 patents, including 278 claims that cover 10 new products.
And this is where
So
I
Apple's
no
like-
longer defend Apple.
It's exponential patent infringement.
Apple basically wants that Galaxy Tab 10.1 to die.
Now, did they bring Mark Zuckerberg into the courtroom to show them the exponential growth chart that he had for that particular patent?
They need charts.
They need
You're right.
charts, yeah, definitely.
At this point, we're going to have 80 patent disputes, next week.
Seriously, it's growing exponentially. It's Facebook users.
Yeah, so just to remind everybody, right before the holidays, the ruling was overturned. Galaxy Tab was allowed to be sold in Australia after a judge overturned an Apple injunction. A lot of injunctions going on here. So Apple's mad, and they're bringing out the big guns. Meanwhile, Samsung is still trying to secure a ban against Apple's iPhone 4S and fighting Apple over its 3G patents and requesting that the court split the hearing into 2 parts. Samsung wants to start the case later this month. Apple says, you know what, we don't even know what we're doing anymore. It's too soon. We need more time to get our case, both sides. Finally, Samsung has responded to that EU antitrust investigation we talked about earlier in the week about whether Samsung enforcing 3G patents violates an agreement that it made back in 1998 to provide the patents to other companies on fair and responsible terms. It's that FRAND again. FRAND keeps coming up. The statement, upon the scrutiny of the facts, the Commission will conclude that Samsung's electronics has acted in compliance with EU competition rules. Oh, Samsung, how very passive-aggressive of you. I love how these companies will say, we're confident that once the government reads everything over a little bit more carefully, they'll side with us.
When they pull their heads out of their butts and actually read what we submitted to them, they'll side with us.
Right.
I mean,
they all do this,
If they
of
said
course.
anything else, like, they're probably right. We probably infringed.
Every company will do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's even through the appeals process, they always maintain that they're the ones on the right. So yes, that case is ongoing as well.
We told you. Ha! Exactly.
In your face.
Exactly. That's how this all boils down to.
Over in Europe, EU regulators do not like Google's privacy policy either, so just add them to the
All right.
list.
So here's what we got.
Pretty much the rest of the world.
We got a group of European regulators, the Article 29 Working Party. They've written to Google asking them to not introduce their new privacy policy, which takes 60 or so privacy policies, merges into one, and they want to. Article 29, the Working Party says it needs to investigate whether the proposal sufficiently protect users' personal data. A letter was written. Google responded, and they said, "quote Our approach to privacy hasn't changed. We're not collecting any new or additional data about users. As you will know, we had extensively pre-briefed data protection authorities across the EU prior to the launch of our notification to users on the 24th of January, and at no stage did any EU regulator suggest that any sort of pause would be appropriate." So pretty much they're saying the exact same thing they've told U.S. Congress, and they put on their blogs and everywhere we could possibly see. Everyone will have notice. It's okay, and you guys should really chill out since we actually put this through EU. But U.S. Congress not so happy with Google either. Apparently, there's a House Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade headed up by committee head Mary Bono Mack. She didn't like what the Google representatives had to tell her about their privacy policy. Quote, "At the end of the day, I don't think their answers to us were very forthcoming necessarily in what this means for the safety of our families and our children."
Oh.
End quote.
Will someone please think of the children?
Because, a change of privacy policy from 60 to 1, that will
Affects our children.
destroy our families and
It will.
children.
It's like gay marriage. We can't allow that.
So gay marriage is like a EULA. I can see that.
The issue, I think, is for whatever reason, Google is saying in relation to the EU here, listen, we told you what we were going to do. You had the opportunity to bring up your concerns, and nobody said anything until we decided to go ahead with it because you didn't really understand what we were doing.
But, well, figure this. The International Union recently cemented their new data protection rules, right? So they've got this new thing going on, and the Google's all like, oh, cool, hey, we're going to consolidate this stuff, make it easier to read, and we're going to launch this, and it's going to go live on March 1st. I mean, you're telling the government, hey, in 30 days, we're going to do anything. It doesn't even matter if you're saying, hey, we're going to order a pizza in 30 days. Whoa!
Yeah, why are you doing this?
Wait.
How is it going to affect my children?
Have you filed your request?
Are we getting sausage
for ingredients in triplicate?
If you're it's like if you're giving us notice, we should be paying attention. Something must be going on, right?
Well, this is what it boils down to is you have these companies that started up in the mid 1990s with the original tech bubble, where it was like, you know what, we shouldn't have to wear suits to work. We can wear shorts and we can ride skateboards through our office and we can do whatever we want. And we can just have this corporate structure of kind of like, hey, it's cool, we're all good. And then you have that meshing with the government that's like, no, it is not all good. And so Google's like, hey, this is easier. It's 60:1. It's easier to read. I'll be honest, I read it. It's the first privacy policy I think I've ever read in my life. Because I'm like, hey.
Did you laugh? Did you cry? Did you?
I saved $5. But no. But it's the government's just like, no, we don't get it. We don't understand it. And we're going to use this to deflect away from other things that we don't want people to think about right now.
I guess my question at this point is, what is Google doing wrong here that no one seems to be able to comprehend what they are trying to do? I mean, they had a director of public policy and Google senior counsel talking to Congress. And the people walked away from there going, I don't know what they're trying to do. I'm really worried about this. It's like, do they need somebody else who can speak in a little bit more like congressional layman's terms to get people to understand what's going on?
Well, it sounds like they did. They sent people over to like, hey, here's how it works.
She's not saying you're wrong. She's saying, I'm confused.
She's just angry because her parents named her Mary Bono Mac. So.
She may have taken someone else's last name. I don't really know the answer to that.
You're taking two things, change, which we all love, and privacy policies, which obviously is just like ice cream to us, and then putting them together, and you're wondering why there's any backlash. I think the only real way for Google to kind of get past this with the EU and everybody is to kind of just simplify this, get the artists out, break out Adobe Illustrator, and you remember that information thing you see on a Boeing 737 before you take off, and they show you how to do the seatbelt. Like, there you go. Like, that should be your starting point.
Or they need to change the name. They don't need to call it privacy policy. It should be like the consumer protection policy. So it'd be like, oh, yes, we're
being
totally
protected.
behind this. Yeah. It's the name.
They're thinking of my children.
Yes, the Protect Your Children Agreement. Do you agree with that? Yes.
But then again, SOPA had an okay name, and people saw past that, too.
Protect IP was the good one.
SOPA did not have a good name if you were in prison.
That's a different kind of SOPA.
Don't drop the SOPA.
All right. Before we get into a deep discussion about the decline of the television industry, let's take a moment to thank GoToMeeting for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. If you do any meeting work, and let's say you're the FBI and you need a better solution than what you've been using so far, you can't have a face-to-face meeting because you got people all over the world in a bunch of different departments, a bunch of different offices, different countries, and you need to get everybody together and have a meeting. Looks good. You can collaborate on a variety of documents, go over some stuff, see other people's body language and social cues. All that stuff is really important when you have a meeting. And if that sounds familiar to you, even if you're not part of the FBI, you should use GoToMeeting with HD Faces. That's from our friends at Citrix. All you need is a webcam to join a group, and you can all start collaborating. Not only can you see each other in high-def goodness, but you can work on documents in real time. So not only can you look at what other people are working on, but you can edit stuff. Everybody can see what's going on. Let me change the wording of this. Very, very helpful.
Not to mention, it's SSL encrypted end-to-end 128-bit AES.
Are you listening, Federal Bureau? Just saying. So it's like you're all in a room, and when you're done, you go back to work. There's no airline travel. It's actually easier. Even us at TWiT, it's hard to get us all in a room sometimes, but it's easy to do a GoToMeeting meeting. So start hosting your own face-to-face online meetings today with GoToMeeting. We're going to give it to you for free for 30 days. All you have to do is go to GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button. It's right there on the front. Can't miss it. And enter the promo code TNT. 30 days free. That's our gift to you. Happy Liquid Friday. All right, let's move on to the sorry state of the television industry. As I mentioned before, yesterday we talked quite a bit about Sony's rather grim earnings report, or lack thereof. Sony is obviously going through a transition. They're going to have a CEO's successor for Howard Stringer starting on April 1st. We talked a little bit about how much of that is Sony's fault, how much of that is
the Earth's fault.
The Earth's fault, and a lot of unfortunate circumstances that went down in 2011 and them recovering from that. Well, Sony's not alone. Japan's Panasonic Corp warned of a record annual $10.2 billion net loss. This is almost all due to restructuring changes and write-downs for its Sanyo electric unit. Sanyo was acquired by Panasonic back in 2009. They've had a lot of restructuring issues around that. Panasonic.
Well, they're not restructuring the CEO, at least, though.
No.
Unlike some other companies, Panasonic president Fumio Otsupu.
That's right.
Is not stepping down.
No, and he's waving off suggestions that Panasonic maybe needs to get out of the TV business. None of these companies seem to want to get out of the TV business. They're just trying to figure it out.
That's again that word change.
Right. So
the biggest problem with Sony and Panasonic and these companies is that they don't change fast enough. The whole system is changing
how big
quickly.
Companies kind of end up that
right.
way.
And I mean, like, what was it yesterday? I was talking to somebody about Sony. Sony still makes Walkmans, and they consider that to be one of their biggest boosts for their. And it's like, pay attention to what's happening around you and focus with that, And that's, I think, the biggest problem with, like, Panasonic. I mean, who has a Panasonic or a Sony television anymore?
I do.
Well,
are you buying a new one?
And Sony thanks you for keeping them in business.
How'd you know it was Sony and not Panasonic? Because you got it right.
You don't want to know.
Speaking of legacy companies, Sharp. It's not just Sony and it's not just Panasonic. Sharp forecasts its worst annual loss since the company was founded over 100 years ago, on slumping prices for its Aquos televisions, an economic slowdown. There was a tax charge involved in Sharp's case. Sharp said it will halve the output and to cut the whole thing in half of its largest TV panel factory in Sakai City, which is in the Osaka prefecture of Japan.
This is after bringing on, in addition to their current plant that does 72,000 panels a month, they brought on a new 8th generation LCD plant capable of doing 100,000. So I don't know what they're going to do with all those extra panels.
I know in the case,
people buying.
Right. I mean, there's, at least in, for Japanese companies, there is the issue of a very strong yen, so that it's harder to move the stuff outside of Japan. There's, an economic turndown in general. People are buying fewer TVs overall, but they're also going to competitors. Samsung is one of them. Vizio. I know, Stephen, you mentioned before the show.
I have 4 Vizio TVs in my house because they cost less than one Sony television. I mean, it's I have a 60-inch. Right. I have a 60-inch Vizio. I have a 47-inch Vizio in my garage. I have a 36-inch Vizio in my bedroom, and I have another 23-inch in my office. And for all 4 of those televisions, I spent less than $3,000. And so, I mean, you can't really beat that kind of pricing structure. And if Sony and Sharp and Panasonic can't play in that pool, they're going to lose.
Well, and apparently they are. Sony has announced that it's cutting 100 jobs just in the U.S. alone. All Things D is reporting that. You have to assume, with these losses, companies can't just turn on a dime and have a new business model tomorrow. Usually it means scaling down, restructuring, and then trying to build back up.
We're saying that Sony and Panasonic and Sharp, older companies, larger companies have trouble like just moving towards things. But Samsung's quite large. They seem to have the right leadership, and they have the ability to go, look, I mean, I was saying this the other day. Samsung, when I was growing up, was like a joke brand. You wouldn't buy anything with Samsung because
it was cheapy.
It was cheap, and it broke. Right. They moved from that to the super premium brand in the course of about 15 years. So it took a really long time to become the #1 television
to restructure that opinion of it.
But it was up at top. That's the real difference there. And the thing is with Panasonic, the idea of buying Sanyo a couple years ago, I was like, why would they bother to buy another low-end brand? They can just relabel some other things.
Well, it's interesting because Scooter X in the chat room actually made the comment that Vizios are mid-level TVs. And he's absolutely right. They are mid-level TVs. But the bottom line is that they're mid-level TVs that work well and look awesome in my house. And for the price, it's kind of like, do I spend $100 on a pair of Birkenstocks, or do I spend $20 on a pair of Payless shoes and then just rebuy them 4 times in the course of a year?
Well, it shows you where television is, right? Like,
right.
They
become disposable.
Right.
Technology
Before
is so
it was,
even.
computers and then flat screen TVs, and all these companies have been able to make that transition. Sharp, for example, making that transition is going to be, building panels for Apple, for the iPad, for the iPhone. That's a good transition. Sorry, Samsung. But
I know Panasonic has tried to get a little bit more into, less focused on consumers buying TVs and more into displays for hospitals.
niche market stuff.
Exactly.
High end, where the money is.
Where the money is,
Right.
where people, if you make the only thing that they need, then they're going to have to buy it from you. So, yeah, I mean, many of these companies are going to have to figure out how to be the next Samsung, which is funny because they were, again,
Just
the
get sued
legacy
by Apple
brands
all
that we
day.
all remember.
Just get sued by
Step
Apple
one,
all
get
day.
sued. First, have a great relationship with them, then get sued like crazy.
Right.
And then
Any
you
publicity
can't
is
be
good publicity.
Yeah, you can't be legitimate in the tech world anymore unless you're being sued by Apple.
Right. Get it together,
the
Sony.
new Wi-Fi pineapple, swipe to hack.
there you go.
There we go.
All right, moving on to some bad news for a few Motorola Xoom owners. It turns out that Motorola provided Xooms to Woot.com last fall. These were refurbished Motorola Xooms, so they were owned by somebody and returned for whatever reason. Of the 1,000 sold, I think about 6,200 in total, 100 were shipped out to new owners with information that the previous owners had left on them. What did that include? Well, things like passwords, account information, photos, and documents, the sorts of things that people don't like to share with strangers. How about that?
Are you sure they didn't want to share it with strangers? Because there's people that write their deep, dark secrets on postcards and send them to blogs to have them.
Oh, you mean
republished.
post
Are you
secrets?
sure that they didn't want to put this data on the device and then I want to put this part of me out into the world, but I don't want to be I want it to be anonymous. So not that anonymous. And then
Not that
I'm going to send it. I know. I'll send my Xoom back to Motorola. They'll send it on to the next guy. It'll be like that fun game we play when we go to eBay, buy a hard drive, and then run Scalpel.
You joke, but I honestly, I don't know why this is Motorola's problem. If I'm sending a Xoom back to Motorola for them to resell, it's up to me to wipe it. And I mean, you're an idiot if you send your data in to them.
How do you forensically sound wipe it, though?
Well, you can't, and that's why you don't sell those devices. I have 35 laptop hard drives in my bottom desk drawer from the last 10 years, and I don't know what to do with them because I'm not going to throw them away.
Let me give you a copy
Make
of
them
Derek's
magnets.
Putin nuke after the show.
Exactly.
But,
So why are they sending these back? Why are they sending these Zooms back in with that information in there? It's up to, in my opinion, this is the user's problem, not Motorola's. They're
Wait a
just
second.
like,
They send
hey,
it-
whatever, we're
They
going
send
to
it
sell
to the
these.
manufacturer. Like they're thinking maybe Motorola's got, I don't know, 1 or 2 guys who can hit back factory reset.
No.
Back.
Yes. What you're
I know that's
missing here
crazy.
is this is you remember you'd go to JCPenney and buy a wallet and it would come with a photo of a family. You're like, hey, it comes with a family, right? This is preloaded with data, example data, kind of show you what it's capable of. How do we know this was, other customers and not Motorola just being like, hey, look, you can have this
It's your new identity.
sexting log.
Identity.
As part of the WPI.
Buy a Zoom and
absolutely-
get a new identity for half the price.
This is a value add, and more companies should be
Exactly.
preloading a bunch of interesting.
Well, if you buy
photos
a
and text
laptop
messages.
on Craigslist, you usually get Final Cut Pro and most of the Microsoft Office preloaded on there, right?
It's like when you would sell your iPod, but you would sell it with all the music preloaded.
Exactly.
Well, also think about who were the people who were returning these Zooms in the first place. Might have been a lot of people who got them as gifts from maybe a geekier family member or friend who said, you're going to love this. And they went, it's not really for
that
me.
geeky
I
friend
don't want
put a
this
bunch
anymore.
of stuff on there for them. Exactly.
Perhaps, yeah. But it might not be people who are really understanding how to wipe any device successfully. So in that case, it kind of turns into, it probably would have made a lot more sense for Motorola just to go through the process of trying to wipe these.
Well, they did.
Considering that some people just didn't.
With a microfiber.
They
Made
wiped
look
them down.
real shiny on the outside. In their defense,
Otherwise, they
Motorola.
have the grease on the unlock pattern.
You know what's weird? They also said only 100 were not fully scrubbed to the data. If you had one of these devices, wouldn't you be like, I'm just going to rent movies?
Yes.
Because it's got an account tied to it.
Totally, yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much for
Well,
all
I
these
think-
paid app.
You used to be able to do that on Google TV, and so one of our friends had left the Google anyway. Yes, and I can tell you it works.
So I'm sure a bunch of people didn't even mention the fact. Oh, by the way, it's got credit card data.
It's like, why is Netflix recommending I watch this movie? How weird.
Hey, look, an Amazon's account is associated.
Thank you,
with
Jason
this webpage,
Applebaum,
too.
for letting me rent Short Circuit.
Well, I think Motorola should actually take this to their advantage and say, like, hey, here are these devices that are currently locked, and if you can hack into them, you can have them for this low price of whatever, and sell them out. And, see if people can get into the data.
In their defense, Motorola is offering any customers who bought and returned the tablet from a number of retailers, Amazon, Best Buy, Radio Shack, Staples, to name a few, between March and October of 2011, 2 years of membership to experience Protect My ID credit monitoring service.
I love how that's the de facto,
exactly.
like we're Sony and we get hacked and customer data is everywhere. It's like, we'll give you a free year of something you're never going to use.
And here's a game that was not fun 3 years ago, and it's still not fun.
You mean the game of calling all your credit institutions?
Exactly.
Because I played that.
Please cancel my credit card.
I played that on the PS1. It wasn't any good.
All right. So who here loves their cell phone service? Loves how much they pay for it? Loves the terms of the service? Has no issues at all? Wouldn't change a thing.
Isn't that sort of like asking who here loves their job?
Yeah. Okay. So nobody's happy.
Not the three of you. Stop it.
Nobody's exactly happy with their cell phone contracts that they had to sign. Might be a solution for you. It's called Ting. Just launched yesterday. It's an MVNO running on the Sprint network. Woohoo. Coming to you from Two Cows.
Now, is this a Chinese thing? Because Ting is the Chinese word for listen. Does that make any issue there? It's a random fact that you didn't need to know that. But I mean, Ting is the Chinese word for listen. So I'm wondering if that has a little play.
That might be why the name was.
I think it probably has something to do with the fact that back in the day, Two Cows, which was like totally known for shareware,
right?
Which
it was the original download.com.
Yeah, for those that are new to this, shareware was this thing we did before app stores. Anyway. They registered a ton of domains, and this is probably just one of their awesome properties that they happen to have, a 4-letter domain. It's pretty good. They did the same thing with when Two Cows launched Butterscotch, was like an IPTV network out of Toronto.
Which I believe has shut down now.
It has unfortunately shut down. I know it sucks because I'm friends with the guys that started it, Andy Walker and Sean Carruthers, but they do a fantastic podcast called Lab Rats, so just shout out to them. I should probably... full disclosure, I have talked to the CEO of Ting. It was just like yesterday, and they may or may not be sponsoring Hack 5. But
he's like, so if they are, I like them. If they're not, then screw those guys.
Well, let's talk about some of the terms of what Ting is.
Go ahead and explain how this works, because I do think that it's kind of like a nice innovative thing in that you just pay for what you used.
Yeah, so we're talking about cell phone bills. So the idea behind Ting is they don't give you enough control over what you're paying for. You have to buy these bundles, and you end up paying more than you use. So the idea is you pay separately. It's kind of an a la carte thing for voice minutes, messages, and data megabytes. It's all separate. So at the end of the month, let's say you've said, okay, I think I'll probably use 600 minutes, that sort of thing. However many texts. This is how many I want to pay for. And this much data. And if you go under that, then Ting will refund you anything that you didn't use, but that you paid for on your plan. However, if you go over, sort of like Price is Right, it's like if you go over, then you're penalized almost as if you're on a roaming plan. So you really want to know at least your habits. If you have really standard habits that don't change month to month, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you need. But if you're sort of up and down, and sometimes you use your phone a lot, and sometimes in other months you use it less, it'd be something that it could could provide you a little bit of stress. The idea is the plans start from small plans. It's called extra small, where you pay nothing until your bill comes in. There's a medium, there's a large, goes all the way up to XXL, which covers,
as a large man, I have to say I'm a little offended they don't have triple XL.
Really?
Just saying, because that's my shirt size. What's up? What's up, Ting? You don't like the fat man?
The thing that I see about it is like I'm working on this new platform, wireless attack platform, and I'm using USB wireless dongles. The current one that I'm using is from Virgin Mobile because they say that they offer like unlimited. And it's prepaid, so I can buy it in cash because it is a hacker device. And
we don't want any tracking back,
maybe. But what I like is that, it's like, oh, $50, it's unlimited, but like the fine print is it's unlimited up to 2.5 gigs, and then after that point, it's 256 kilobits a second.
This is what really irritates me with wireless providers, is that they don't understand what the word unlimited means.
Yeah. Well, that's,
if you use that word, then stand behind that word.
So as soon as as soon as this device, the Galaxy Note, came out internationally, I had it imported because it's just freaking awesome, right? And the thing that I hate about it is that I have to use it with AT&T or T-Mobile with Edge, but for 3G AT&T. And their thing is, the 2 gig cap, right? I wasn't grandfathered in on some awesome iPhone plan. Well, after 2 gigs, they'll give you another gig for $10. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Then they'll give you another one. Fair enough. Then they'll give you another one. Sure, now you're up to 5 gigs. Well, this has happened to me on multiple occasions where now I've gone through 5 gigs and they're like, no more packets for you. And it's like, what? And it's like, you have packets, I have money, here's $10, give me a gig. And it's like, they're like, no, you have to wait until your cycle restarts. And I'm like, why? This is a transaction.
Yeah, exactly. You're making money. I'm using what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call from AT&T probably every 3 months about the fact that I'm using too much data. And I'm like, well, I'm unlimited. And they're like, well, yeah, but you're using too much data. I'm like, I'm unlimited. And it's like, you need to understand what that word means, because I was grandfathered into that. And it irritates me that they're not like that. So I'll respect Ting if they're going to set it up and they're going to be like, this is what it costs and this is where it's at.
Yeah.
And you use this much and you pay this much. And as long as they leave it alone and allow you to make that transaction like you're saying, and not just be like, and now we're done with you for the month.
Well, the idea is that Ting understands that people are going to go over. They're going to make some money for people saying, ooh, gosh, the top plan gave me 3 gigabytes of data in the month. I went over. I wasn't really paying attention. This has happened to me in my own plans before. So it's a business model that is going to work really well for some people. Some people are going to say, this is exactly what I need. Other people, especially if you have somewhat erratic usage, might not get the same results. And it's worth mentioning that your phone has to be unsubsidized if you want to use Ting. First of all, a lot of people don't have that. And obviously phones that are unsubsidized are more expensive out of the gate. And if you say, hey, you said that it worked on the Sprint network, so I'm on Sprint, can I just switch over to Ting? You can't. You have to sign up for Ting separately.
Limitation.
If you're using a Sprint phone, you're stuck on Sprint.
Now, Ting doesn't have any unlimited offerings. So they have that XXL plan, but there's no triple XL.
I'm going to give them a call and be like, hey, you need a triple XL, which is just all unlimited across the board, because that's how we roll.
But like 10 gigs on Ting's plan would 10 times 2.25 cents per gigabyte would cost you $220. I did the math wrong.
But
anyway, it's two. They actually say here's the best thing to do is just get the extra small and everything, which is $0.
Right.
And then you just pay
for the actual usage.
For the actual usage, because they're going to bump you up to the tier no matter what. So really, it only comes into account when you've used
Yeah, but they don't charge you for tethering or hotspot usage or voicemail, picture and video messaging. There's a lot of stuff that's included in here. For someone like me who doesn't need a cell phone every month, this is the thing. This is the kind of thing what I was looking for. Now, what I'm really enjoying about something like Ting is it's an MVNO. So there is a lot of room for a lot of companies to try this kind of thing out. This is a really unique kind of plan. It's not going to fit everybody. Like, my use case is really unusual. Like, I'm usually in a Wi-Fi area. I have a Google Voice number. I can get it via Skype. It's not the best situation. But if I wanted to, I could move to Ting, which is on Sprint, or I could use Virgin Mobile, which is really good because they don't have the same activation costs. But it's this kind of experimental system. The thing is, I would love to see, if Light Squared ever got the permission from the FCC to land with, a nice LTE network in the United States that everybody can try out all these kinds of things. All the plans that we have currently are somewhat antiquated compared to our actual usage. Darren, you were complaining about how you're not getting what you want.
Yeah, I will pay you. Here's money.
It's like,
give me
just
packets.
take my money.
Yeah,
right?
well, I think Ting, in the best case scenario, would be it's a good way for if it takes off and they end up getting a user base that is respectable. Other companies will say we're going to have to start offering plans that Ting offers, in addition to some of our other plans. Like, maybe we'll have unlimited data plans, but we also have to have a little bit more a la carte plans for people, or else they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle that they're going to have, honestly, is the fact that people aren't used to buying devices, they're used to subsidizing it, and they're under that illusion like, oh, the phone was free. Well, guess what? It's not. You're in a 2-year contract. You've paid for it 3 times over by the end of it. But I think that's going to be their biggest hurdle. And yet, at the same time, they kind of are killing it right now with the data, just because their USB dongles are hella cheap, and their data rates are totally reasonable.
Well, this is the next step beyond the prepaid Boost mobiles and those kind of things, where it's now you can get the prepaid service that's not under contract, and you can use the phone you already have in your pocket, versus the prepaid where you have to go buy the cell phone that's dirt cheap and useless for anything other than making phone calls, which some people like. But yeah, so I think this is the next level, and I think we're going to start to see this over the next few years, where the idea of a contract, the idea of these like, I'm locked in for 2 years at this rate, is going to end, because there's going to be companies like Ting and that are going to continually do it better and better and better, that it's going to get more and more foolish to sign a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the news views. RIM plans to offer Playbook to Android developers for the low cost of $0. RIM's blog post says the plan is to provide one free 16-gigabyte BlackBerry Playbook to every registered BlackBerry App World vendor who converts their Android app for use on the BlackBerry Playbook and submits it to BlackBerry App World between February 2nd, 2012 and February 13th, 2012. So you've got a couple days if you want a free Playbook.
STM Labs, or Steam Labs, announced it's developing a new Linux distro for the Raspberry Pi $25 computer and its Rasp BMC, a variant of XBMC optimized for the super affordable PC. I'm psyched about this. The distro has some cool features like PBR support, AirPlay support, NFS and SMB file sharing, and it's open source. XMBC is not involved in this project, but this is still pretty cool.
I love that. Open source is so great. The Pew 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 Research Internet Project, or it might have only been one pew, just published a report that says that women, get this, use Facebook more than men. Women update their Facebook statuses 11 times a month, where men only 6. And women also commented on more on other people's statuses updates.
Shocked.
Yeah,
Wow, am I shocked?
Nice going, Pew.
Women more prolific on Facebook than men. Mega Upload founder Kim.com lost his appeal for bail, even though his defense tried to explain that .com would not flee. The court says, hey, you're an extremely large flight risk, physically and, well.
Now, is this guy actually Tracy Jordan's entourage guy?
He's getting up there.
Is that the same .com?
No, that .com is reasonable. This .com is
that .com is just .com.
That just okay.
Single name.
Is that really his name?
Different
Because
guy.
if his name is really Kim.com, then I respect him for creating Mega.
Kim Schmitz, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, he's legally changed his name. He'll be back in court February 22nd.
Seamus Blackley, co-creator of the Xbox and president of the startup Innovation Leisure, is partnering with a team of former Atari designers to make games for the iPhone and iPad. They passionately believe that gameplay will triumph in the game business. That is why he and his new startup are relying on a team of famous designers from Atari to make a series of games for the Apple, iPhone, and iPad. Blackley explains, we are looking at the new arcade at 99 cents on the iPhone. It's the new quarter.
Ooh, them's
nice.
fighting words.
I don't think I've seen a 99-cent piece, though. I don't know what he's talking about.
There's a Sacagawea,
It's like $1.
and then you'd have to take a penny off of it, so I don't know.
Where do you put it in the phone?
Oh,
Sorry.
Good call. All right, well, hey, remember Kelly Haas? A.K.A. Lux?
That's his Klingon name.
Yeah. Actually, it was a 41,000 computer-strong botnet that Microsoft and Kaspersky Labs took down in September. Well, it's back. In a blog post, Kaspersky Lab explains that the sinkholing strategy originally used to take down the Kelly Haas provided a quick fix, but it's not effective in as effective as the botnet. As the botnet masters are still at large, and challenges in encryption and packaging the botnet messages mean that sinkholing is no longer effective. So if the botnet masters still have a list of active router IPs, they still are holding the cards.
Gotta find this botnet master. Where are you? The U.S. military is going Android. Hey, how about that? Sources say at least some officials this year will receive smartphones capable of handling classified documents, government documents, over cellular networks, running modified Android software, which is being developed as part of an initiative that spans multiple federal agencies and government contractors. Congrats, Android.
Hopefully they can get updates out faster than carriers.
Yeah.
Apple updated its iBooks Author app, and the only change is an updated EULA. The new EULA makes clear that the only works that Apple has any rights to is the extension that has the .iBooks extension. So that's limited to iBooks. Whatever else you do with that information, you're free to go out there. So Apple does not have an interest necessarily in your works. So calm down, everybody.
On to the randomizer.
Apple does not.
Randomizer.
I've got good news.
Is it that we're taking a road trip?
Road trip.
Maybe to a potentially habitable alien planet, one that scientists say is the best candidate yet to harbor water and possibly even life on its surface. And it's been found around a nearby star.
You're
This is
talking
according to
about
Scientific American.
GJCC7CC, right?
That's great. We can trash
That's
this
right,
place.
Darren.
Forget recycling. Forget global warming. We can just leave.
I heard
There's
there's
a
a
new
great
planet
new
we can
brewery
have
that's
F up.
opening up on that planet.
All right, good.
So we're
Some nice
there.
clean water there.
We'll be
All
doing
right.
an Uber Thursday episode on that planet shortly.
Stephen Vogt, an astronomer at the University of California, Santa Cruz, told Space.com this is the holy grail of exoplanet research, to find a planet around a star orbiting at the right distance. It's not too close where it would lose all its water and boil away, and it's not too far that would make the water freeze. It's right in the middle.
Well, they call
of
it the
zone.
Goldilocks zone, right?
Guess so.
Yeah, you're
It's
not
the Goldilocks zone.
Which
Yeah.
real estate, location,
It's
location.
just
Exactly.
right. So yeah, this is really exciting.
Now, so if we
I
get
don't want to
into
be a buzzkill, actually, but it's 22 light years away.
well, that's what I was going to say. If we get into a ship now,
Okay,
we'll
so-
get there in about 95,000 years.
95. Well, that's if we go 153,800 miles an hour, which is the fastest manned spacecraft has ever
currently
gone.
can go, yeah.
So we'll probably have to go a little bit faster. But
Yeah.
what's really interesting about this, in all seriousness, though, is that statistically, this is kind of an abnormal thing because this would imply that there are an awful lot of planets out there like this because this was chosen out of just the ones nearby us. So if
Right.
like something this nearby us is this M-class kind of happy land of they got water.
M-class. I like how you use that. So
Well, I'm going to beam down there as soon as I can.
well,
with
I
some
think
red shirts.
people have a tendency to forget the fact that we are on the outer skirts of the known universe. So if you talk about evolutionary theory, we've not been around for very long compared to some of the galactic clusters that are in the center of the universe that were there even longer than we were. So there's a whole universe of intelligent beings out there that are just like, Earth is not ready for us. So, no.
we have to build really fast
Until they
rockets.
get rid of macro beer, they're not ready for us to visit.
We'll get there. Let's
Oh,
move
I
on
thought
to
you were
the
going to say word macros.
Well,
Those
word
two.
macros too, yes.
Let's move on to the calendar.
A sad day today. Micron's CEO died today. Steve Appleton, the company's chief executive and chairman, died Friday morning in a small plane accident. In much lighter news, Skype's 5.8 software update for Windows is out and brings some new goodies: HD video calls, Facebook video calls, and if you pay for Skype Premium, group screen sharing. Good news for Windows Phone users around the world. Microsoft announced the launch of Windows Marketplace in 5 additional countries: Argentina, Indonesia, Malaysia, Peru, and the Philippines. Super Bowl's on Sunday, and for the first time, the NFL is streaming it on NBCSports.com and NFL.com in the U.S. The game will also be available on Verizon's NFL mobile app. And on Monday, February 6th, Lilyhammer, a Netflix original program, debuts. All episodes should be available on that day, so you can marathon on Monday.
All right, let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got an email from Simon in Liverpool. This is in response to our story about the Google Android bouncer, which is supposed to help keep malware out of the Android marketplace algorithmically. Simon says, I don't know about Android's Dalvik virtual machine, but bytecode destined for the Java virtual machine has to be highly deterministic. In layman's terms, what I'm saying is it's possible to predict things like how data structures will be accessed and how the stack holding the local data will resize between entering and exiting each code portion. Indeed, by default, the JVM actually traces potential paths through web applets before they run to guard against unauthorized activity. So this predictability makes it easier to understand how an app is going to be using data, for example, to assert that a given network message contains data originating from a key press. Of course, this doesn't betray the intent of the behavior. Broadcasting key presses might be fine for an instant messaging app, but very suspicious for a screensaver. One assumes that the app's marketplace category might determine what counts as dubious and what does not. So, unlike some software platforms, Java makes that bit easier to do analysis of code behavior using software alone, potentially, but the bouncer still has to guess whether the intent is malicious. Perhaps that's why Google's blog made reference to previously known app malware.
Wonderful.
Did you like that?
I did like that.
Yeah, no, that was
Did anybody
that
else
was
have
really
to read
good
that email like
explanation,
4
Simon. Thank
times
you.
before they really got what was being said?
Well, I
Yeah,
think,
it would be me.
he's
I
trying
screened
to
them, so.
break down. Our question yesterday was, okay, well, it's a great call. I mean, it's good for the Android marketplace to not be seen as somewhere that malware can get through easily because
Right.
nobody's policing it. But if it's, if this is sort of a computer trying to weed stuff out rather than personally curated stuff, that's a step in the right direction, but stuff is still going to come through, right? Because people are smart enough to know how to work around that when they can figure out the numbers game.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot of apps out there that you would think like, oh, this isn't a malicious app like TweetDeck, right? You would install that, right? Well, it's not a malicious app, but the way that it uses its global, what are they called? Global events. I'm probably butchering this. Georgia Widman just schooled us on this at ShmooCon. But anyway, there's just some interesting things happening in the fact that other applications can end up using those kind of like an API to well, what does TweetDeck do? Well, it sends Twitter messages. So if you have that on your phone, potentially there's potential for other apps to be able to use those in there. So.
All right, well, we've come to the end of our show. Thanks so much to Stephen Johnson for being here. Tell folks where they can find you online and what you're up to these days.
I'm around. NewBrewThursday.com. That's our website. We talk about beer a lot and we drink it a lot. We also do food pairings. So if you're into food or beer, come check us out. So,
That's a perfect pairing. And Darren, let folks know what's up on Hack 5 these days.
Well, what would you expect to be on Hack 5? We're doing an awesome segment on Expect, the Linux tool to help you find out what happened and do something that you expected to happen. It's at hack5.org.
I like that. That's a good tease. I'm intrigued. Also want to thank all of our Redditors. TechNewsToday.reddit.com is where you've been submitting stories and voting them up and down and helping us build our lineup. We thank you so much. You're over 4,000 strong, folks. We love you guys. Keep submitting stories. Help us help you. And contact us. TNT@twit.tv is our email address. Our voicemail is 260-TNT-SHOW. Call us, email us, questions, comments, anything else. Monday's guest is Peter Ha. And guess what's going to be back on Monday? Tom Merritt. I'm going to be sitting in my seat. It's going to be real life again.
That's assuming he comes back.
Yeah. Come
Actually,
back, please,
I've been
Tom.
told I was going to replace Tom Merritt. But whatever.
Have a
You
great
heard it here
weekend,
first.
everybody.
Cheers.